Now we will discuss about heredity, genes and behavior under chapter 3, the basis of human behavior. We inherit characteristics from our parents in the form of genes. A child at birth possesses a unique combination of genes received from both parents. This inheritance provides a distinct biological blueprint and timetable for an individual's development. The study of the inheritance of physical and psychological characteristics from ancestors is referred to as genetics. The child begins life as a single zygote cell in mother's ovum fertilized by father's sperm. Zygote is a tiny cell with the nucleus in its center containing chromosomes. These chromosomes with all genes are inherited from each parent in equal numbers. So, what are chromosomes? Chromosomes are the hereditary elements of the body. They are thread like paired structures in the nucleus of each cell. The number of chromosomes per nucleus is distinctive and is constant for each living organism. The gametic cells, that is sperm and ovum, have 23 chromosomes but not in pairs. A new generation results from the fusion of a sperm cell and an egg cell. At the time of conception, the organism inherits 46 chromosomes from parents, 23 from the mother, and 23 from the father. Each of these chromosomes contains thousands of genes. However, the sperm cell fathers differs from the egg cell mothers in one important respect. The 23rd chromosome of the sperm cell can be either the capital X or Y or capital Y type of the English alphabet. If the X type sperm fertilizes the egg cell, the fertilized egg will have an XX23 chromosome pair and the child will be a female. On the other hand, if a Y type sperm fertilizes the egg, the 23rd chromosome pair will be XY and the child will be a male. Chromosomes are composed mainly of a substance called deoxyribonucleic acid, that is DNA. Our genes are composed chiefly of DNA molecules. The two genes that control the development of each trait are situated at the same locus, one on each chromosome of a particular pair. The exception is the sex chromosomes, that is, the pair of chromosomes that determines an individual's sex. Now, genes. So, every chromosome stores thousands of genetic commands in the form of genes. These genes dictate much of the course of an organism's development. They contain instructions for the production of specific proteins, which regulate the body's physiological processes and the expression of phenotypic traits. The observable traits of an organism are called phenotype. For example, body build, physical strength, intelligence, and other behavioral traits. The traits which can be passed on to the offspring through genetic material are called its genotype. All biological and psychological characteristics that a modern man possesses are the result of or of genotype inheritance with phenotypical variations. A given gene can exist in several different forms. Change of a gene from one form to another is called mutation. The type of mutation that occurs spontaneously in nature provides variation in genotypes and permits the evolution of new species. Mutation permits recombination of new genes with the genes already present. This new combination of gene structure is then put to test in the environment, which can select out those genotypes that turn out to be best fitted for the environment. Now, cultural basis. Another topic, cultural basis, socio-cultural shaping of behavior. So now, after discussing all this topic of biological basis of behavior, We all might have get an idea that many of our behaviors are influenced by hormones and many others occur as reflexive responses. However, hormones and reflexes do not explain all our behavior. The hormones play an important role in regulating human physiology, but they do not completely control human behavior. Similarly, stereotype, that is fixed pattern, which is the most distinguishing feature of a reflex, does not appear with most human responses. We can draw examples from several domains of our life to argue that our behavior is more complex than the behavior of animals. For example, a major reason for this complexity is that, unlike animals, human beings have a culture to regulate their behavior. Let us consider the basic need of hunger. We know that it has a biological basis, which is common among animals and human beings. But the way this need is gratified by human beings is extremely complex. For example, some people eat vegetarian food while others eat non vegetarian food. How have they become vegetarians and non vegetarians? Some vegetarians take eggs, others do not. Why is that so? Try to think how people have come to behave so differently in terms of food intake. If you explore further, you will find that there are so many variations in the manner in which food is eaten. For example, directly with hand or with the help of spoons, forks, and knives. Sexual behavior can be taken as another example. We know that this behavior involves hormones and reflexive reactions in animals and human beings alike. While among animals, sexual behavior is fairly simple and reflexive. All animals indulge in sexual behavior almost in the same manner. It is so complex among human beings that it can hardly be described as reflexive. Partner preferences are a key feature of human sexual behavior. The basis of these preferences widely differ within and across societies. Human sexual behavior is also governed by many rules, standards, values, and laws. However, these rules and standards also remain in a continuous process of change. These examples illustrate that biological factors alone cannot help us very much in understanding human behavior. The nature of human beings is very different from those provided to us by biological scientists. Human nature has evolved through an interplay of biological and cultural forces. These forces have made us similar in many ways and different in others. Now, concept of culture. We know that human behavior can be understood only by viewing it in the socio-cultural context in which it occurs. Human behavior is fundamentally social. It involves relationships with other people, reactions to their behavior, and engagement with innumerable products made available to us by our predecessors. Although many other species are also social like us, human beings are cultural as well. Question might arise, what does it mean to be cultural? In order to answer this question, we will need to understand the meaning of culture. Describing it in simplest terms, culture refers to the man made part of the environment. It comprises diverse products of the behavior of many people, including ourselves. These products can be material objects, for example, tools, sculptures, ideas, for example, categories, norms, or social institutions, for example, families, school. We find them almost everywhere. They influence behavior, although we may not always be aware of it. For example, the room you might be sitting right now is a cultural product. It is the result of someone's architectural ideas and building skills. Your room may be rectangular, but there are many Places where rooms are not rectangular, for example, those of Eskimos. While reading, studying right now, you might be sitting on a chair that some people designed and built some time ago. Since sitting in a chair requires a particular posture, this invention is shaping your behavior. There are societies without chairs. So just try to think how people in those societies would be sitting in order to do some reading or studying. Students sit on chairs in the classrooms. But chairs are not found in all schools. In schools in most villages, there are no chairs for students. They sit on the ground or on a piece of sack spread over it. That in some societies, children gather in rooms facing a teacher is another kind of cultural product called schooling. This institution may have material aspects such as buildings and ideational aspects such as the notion that schooling should take place at a specific place and time, or the idea that individuals attending schools must be evaluated and given certificates on successful completion of schooling. This institution also provides with behavioral expectation for all those who participate in it. Both teachers and students have a series of roles to play and responsibilities to share. Individuals, families, and communities have different views about schooling. Some believe that school education is a valuable thing. They have unshaken faith that school education can make people powerful and change their destiny. Others consider it neither valuable nor do they have faith in its strength as such. Some societies emphasize on equal education for boys and girls, others do not. Some groups widely participate in the process of schooling. Others, for example, tribal groups, participate little or not at all. People with special needs often remain deprived of school education for a number of reasons. People's views about communities, gender, caste groups, and those with special needs and their educability also differ widely across societies. As you look around, you will find that much of our life as human beings involves interacting with various cultural products and behaving in accord with them. This means that culture shapes our behavior in a significant manner. However, it may also be noted at this point that just as culture shapes us, we also shape our culture. Several anthropologists have pointed out the mutual influences of culture and psyche on each other. They suggest that the relationship between individuals and their social surroundings is interactive, and in the course of these interactions, they constitute each other. This perspective emphasizes that human beings are not passive recipients of cultural forces. Instead, they themselves create the context in which their behavior is shaped. What is culture? In spite of the fact that culture is always with us, much confusion exists in defining culture. It is more like the notion of energy in physics or group in sociology. Some believe that culture really exists out there and it matters to individuals, while others believe that culture does not really exist. Instead, it is an idea created and shared by a group of people. The innumerable definitions of culture commonly point to some of its essential features. One is that culture includes behavioral products of others who preceded us. It indicates both substantial and abstract particulars that have prior existence in one form or another. Thus, culture is already there as we begin life. It contains values that will be expressed and a language in which to express them. It contains a way of life that will be followed by most of us who grow up in that context. Such a conceptualization of culture tends to place it outside the individual, but there are also treatments of culture that places it in the minds of individuals. In the latter case, culture is identified with a historically transmitted pattern of meanings embodied in symbols. Culture provides meaning by creating significant categories like social practices, for example, marriage, and roles, for example, bridegroom, as well as values, beliefs, and premises. As Richard Sweder put it, to learn that a mother's sister's husband is an uncle, one must somehow receive the frame of understanding from others. Whether culture is taken as an existing reality or as an abstraction or both, it exerts many real influences on human behavior. It allows us to categorize and explain many important differences in human behavior that were previously attributed to biological differences. Social and cultural contexts within which human development takes place vary widely over time and place. For example, some 20 years ago, children in India would not have known several products that are now part of a child's world. Similarly, an Adivasi living in a remote forest or hilly area would not have a pizza or sandwich as breakfast. In the previous paragraphs, we have made and understood culture and society, and these terms are considered to carry the similar meaning, but important point is that they are not the same thing. A society is a group of people who occupy a particular territory and speak a common language not generally understood by neighboring people. A society may or may not be a single nation, but every society has its own culture, and it is culture that shapes human behavior from society to society. Culture is the label for all the different features that vary from society to society. It is these different features of society whose influences psychologists want to examine in their studies of human behavior. Thus, a group of people who manage their livelihood through hunting and gathering in forests would present a life characterized by certain features that will not be found in a society that lives mainly on agricultural produce or wage earnings. Now, cultural transmission. As biological creatures, we have certain vital needs. Their fulfillment enhances our chances of surviving. In fulfilling these needs, we use most of our acquired skills. We also have a highly developed capacity to benefit from experiences of our own and those of others. No other creature has learning capacity to the same extent as we have. No other creature has created an organized system of learning called education, and none in this universe wants to learn as much as we do. As a result, we display many forms of behavior that are uniquely human and creations of what we call culture. The processes of enculturation and socialization make us cultural beings.